praying about this talk is crazy to me that I even have this experience to talk about, which I think is amazing. But as praying about it and thinking about like what I could actually tell you that was truthful, God really like pressed upon me to tell you the truth. And I thought about it getting up this morning, and my husband says, "Tell them you actually have 45 minutes to get ready by yourself this morning." So he's proud. I know. You can ask Heather, you can ask Ange, you can ask Jamie. I don't look like this ever. Like I usually have sweatpants on. I'm wearing capris because it's all that's clean and it's freezing outside. So I just want you guys to know, like there'll be a lot of truth in this story because that's really what was pressed upon me when I was thinking about it. Like Heather said, I am a mommy of 4. I've been married almost 10 years, and we have an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and now an 8-month-old. The first 3 are girls, and we got a boy. So it's been really interesting, and I want to start off by saying that this is not just a money talk, kind of like Heather was saying. This really changed our lives. My husband became, I would say, a Christ follower because of it. And so it's really, really, really important to us. And from that, like I said, I'll be talking later about kind of practical stuff. I have really learned that this is necessary in people's lives. And so that's why I like to talk about it. And I've learned that if you love something enough, you will just talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Because I'm not usually a presenter. Like, I'm very actually apathetic to a lot of things. And this is something that I just talk to your off about. So let me tell you a little bit about my story, and then we'll talk more practical. I want to say truth. About 8 years ago when we got pregnant, my husband works for Disney, just so you know, and he was making, a normal salary, maybe $45,000, something like that. And I said, I want to stay home. I was working at a resort at that time, and I was not sure that I could stay at home financially, but I said, we're having a baby, I'm staying home. I don't want to work anymore. So I went part-time. I was like, I can do that. Went part-time, and my baby was 13 months old, I think, and I was working a double shift. I only worked on weekends when my husband could stay home with her, and I got a call that she walked. And it was like, mic drop, why am I even here for 24 hours in a week, and my baby walked when I was home. So that was it, and I told my husband I was staying home. I was like, I will ask my mother to pay for our groceries. I don't care. Like, I will just do it. It doesn't matter. And my mom was like, yes, that's fine. I can help you out. And that's kind of where the journey was. It was a big leap of faith. We didn't know God at the time. I grew up Christian, so I was definitely a God follower, but not a Christ follower, if I were to say that. So move ahead 3 years, maybe 4 years. We came to the crossing. I used to live next to Ange Applebaum. So for a little while she was coming to the crossing, she asked us to come. And so we started coming about 3.5, 4 years ago, and we got into a small group. So it was a very hard small group for us. God was kind of pressed upon us, and it was very hard and troubling, and it's really hard to be in a relationship with God. Like, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. And somehow the idea of tithing came up. And I had heard about it my whole life. My mom just like put an envelope in the little offering bin every month. I had no idea what it meant. And a friend of ours said, well, we've never tithed either, but God just pressed upon us to tithe 4%. So if you don't know, tithing is 10% of your gross income. So what comes in, what God gives you is your income, not after taxes, but before taxes. So it's believed that's what God gives you. And we were like, okay, sure, whatever. There's no way that we can give that much money. Like, we will be poor if we give that much money. And so this couple really just said, we give 4% because God just really wanted us to be tested in this. And I just kept hearing these stories. So that was the beginning. And I kept hearing the story about people tithing, who had less money than we do, if I were to be honest. And they were like, if they couldn't pay their mortgage, it showed up in their mailbox. If they couldn't pay for something, their kids were gifted something. It was the craziest stories. And you always think, like, that must be nice for you. Like, that's never going to happen. So throughout that probably 6-month period of hearing all these stories, I talked to my husband, who, again, was not a Christ follower, is very logical. And I said, I just really think we should tithe something. Like, we're going to this church, we love it, we need to do something. I was the budgeter, and so he said, if I don't see it, you can do whatever you want with the money. So I said, okay. So I started tithing, I think maybe even like 2%, 3%. And I kid you not, within the first, timeline's weird right now, but 4 months maybe, he got a 20% raise. And he had not changed jobs, he had not done anything. So he came home and I was like, what? Like, what just happened? Again, being in his logical mind, he was like, well, you know, the restructuring. I thought, okay, that's cool. So I tithed a little more because we weren't hurting. So I said, okay, I think we should tithe the 10% now. He said, yeah, I don't see it, it's fine. So I started tithing 10%. I think within 2 months, he had about a 40% raise. And he came home one night, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and he sat on the couch, and he kind of looked at me in a weird way, and he said, I really can't think of another reason why this would be happening. And I knew exactly what he meant, and I couldn't believe his ears. And so from that day on, we tithed faithfully, and it was magical. I think, like Heather was saying, it was absolutely magical. So then I started to think, well, now I'm scared. So I'm only going to save and I'm going to tithe. That's all I'm doing with the extra money. I don't want to do anything else with it. And sure enough, we were blessed and blessed and blessed over and over and over and over again. And one day I read this verse. It's Malachi 3:10. And it's the most amazing verse I've ever heard. And like Heather said, God says, test me in this. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. It says, test me and I will open the storehouses for you and I will bless you abundantly, more than you could ever imagine. And it happened to us. And I started to really feel like I was gifted in this idea of managing the money that God had given us. And so I started to do that for friends and family. And with that, blessings came more. I don't even know how to explain it because I still don't really believe it, but things just started to happen with those friends and families. And it was just, again, magical. It was just magical. And Heather kind of reminded me the other day to really press on you that blessings don't always come in money. And I believe very wholeheartedly that we were given money because my husband needed to know that if we gave that money, the money was going to come back to us. So that's how our blessings came, but it doesn't always happen that way. I saw churches restored. I saw, houses being sold. I saw like all these kind of things, and it was crazy. It was just crazy. And I'm a huge brown noser and rule follower, so I literally said, all right, God, if you're going to give me this blessing, I will teach people. I will check it off my list. I will make sure I'm always tithing. I will only give to you and save. I will only treat my money the way you want me to. So that's the magical part of it. I will say, again, going back to truth, that fades after a while. Heather will tell you, this past year we paid off all our debts, so I'll tell you a little bit about that practical part later, but we paid off all our debts, and we started to have like fun money. It was, y'all, we got $100 a month, and we were like, what are we going to do with $100? Because we like did, when I tell you we didn't go to movies, we didn't do nothing. My poor kids, they just sat around the house and like, luckily homeschool, but it was crazy to get this $100, and it's just, this is amazing. Life happens though. We started to get excited about things, and we bought things with money that we had, with cash that we had, and we bought solar panels. We'll talk later. If you have cash, you get solar panels. But anyway, so
have cash.
But if you have cash, but we took a loan out for that, paid it off in 2 months. But either way, like, it was a downfall for us because you're not supposed to be taking out loans, and you're not supposed to. So life happened, and we got excited, if I were to say the least. And Heather would probably roll her eyes because excited to us is like nothing. But for us, I was having this very guilty feeling of being selfish, and I fell off the wagon, and I was like supposed to be this lady that was like the person to go to about this being on cash. And about 2 months ago, around the holidays, my husband, one of his great blessings was he was bonus eligible. But it's Disney, it's a huge company, and so what do you expect, So I said, okay, well, we at least get this much. We can pay off the solar panels, and we can get back on track, and I was feeling very, very low about this selfish desire of like having bought baskets so I could reorganize my house, and I can't even tell you what, it was just crazy. So I was going to the bathroom and I had my phone with me, and I get a text from my husband that says, we just had our meeting and this is how much money we're getting in our bonus this year. And y'all, I just sobbed. Well, I peed, like I just sobbed because I couldn't. Here I am being selfish, and God's like, all right, I hear your heart, like it's money that you need, here's money. Which to me is the opposite. If you're not treating your money well, why would you give money? But I think it has been very clear to us that your heart is where He's going to look. If you need restoring in an area of your life, that's where you'll find it. And ours was money. And so it's an ongoing journey. It continues to be ongoing, clearly, because I just saw the money go in the toilet. But we're not going to. So, so it's been a really crazy thing, and I am so excited, and I really hope these tips and tricks really bless you all. At the end, I also want to do questions, because it's hard to not do one-on-one, which I love to do. But if you have any questions, I would love to do that with you guys as well. I'd love to say this is like a ministry for me I've started, and so, so I started to perfect my technique, whether it be like talking to friends. I talked to Ange a long time ago about it, like how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? And then I hear some people do it, I go, how do you know where your money is? And so through that, I've kind of like designed this plan, and it's worked for some of my friends and families. And so if you want, so I made 24 binders. I have a budget binder.
There's not enough for everyone.
There's not enough for everyone.
Solid budget.
But if you have, so we're gonna just pass it out so you can look at them while I'm talking. I can make more because this is literally my lifesaver, this thing. We get paid on Thursdays, and Thursday morning, the kids watch TV, and I take tea, and I do my budget, and I get so excited. My husband knows because I text him 12 times about like, how much did this cost, and what would you say this is gonna happen? He's like, oh, Thursday morning. So I just wanted to go through it with you to be more practical about it. Does anyone not know who Dave Ramsey is? Okay, so we probably heard through Dave Ramsey. They were kind of going through the program, they're going to a class, and so she was kind of telling us, this was back in the like 12 credit card, still had everything on payment plan days, and I was like, that's going to be really hard. That's going to be so hard for us to do. And we just, again, like I said, we didn't go anywhere. We ate probably not great food, all that stuff, and when Ange and I lived next door, we shared dinners 4 nights a week or something. We're like, we'll just eat together so we can save money.
Anybody want one that doesn't have one?
So, step 2 is paying off debt. So that we finished. And then this is how we keep on track. So we did end up going to Financial Peace, which is Dave Ramsey's class. Last year, when I was very pregnant, we taught it, and it was magical. And my husband has given me permission to say if anybody is looking to go to the class, we will teach it again. We would love to do it. So we can arrange that soon if we want to. So how I do it, you can get paid weekly, you can get paid monthly, you can get paid bi-weekly. I think those are the most common. There is a way to do it if you have varying incomes as far as like a server or something like that. It's super simple. So if you have questions about that, I can answer that. The first page in each month is a zero-based budget, which again is Dave Ramsey based. It's just saying I have this much money coming in every month, and I have to put it somewhere, and if you don't have enough money, then you don't get to pay for it. So this is just basing all your numbers on what is coming in that month. No matter how many weeks you get paid, do it by the month. And I like this because it doesn't let me forget anything. I am very forgetful. That was my biggest downfall, is that things would come up, like all of us, like Halloween, oh, I'm not going to make costumes, I'm going to buy them, and so that's an extra $100 or whatever it's going to be. And so this is month by month basis, so that's why there's a tab for every month. Me and my husband do like to talk, and I understand that some husbands aren't talkers, some husbands aren't communicators, and I'm blessed in that way. But it is very important to get your spouse on board, whether it be just don't spend any money unless I tell you. Like, even if not talking to each other, just don't spend any money. Can I call Jamie out with her dog? And it's like, please don't go to the gas station. That's what she told her husband. Please just don't go to the gas station. Just don't go. Because he was not right, like a drink and something little. Yeah. Yeah. It was hysterical. Yeah. So that's step one, is to fill out that form. At the back of the form on the bottom, it'll say, like, you are supposed to be bringing in this much. This is how much is on your form. I'm not gonna lie, some days I have -14. Like, I'm like, where am I gonna find $14 to make up my budget? So this will be a really good guideline for you throughout the month. The next page is a calendar. I always include it because I write my bills on it. The point is not to have bills, but most people will have a mortgage for a while. You will always have an electric bill. Water, things like that. Phones, you always usually have to pay, a service for. So there are things that will always obviously be on a service. So I write them on the calendar, and this will help doing your budget weekly or bi-weekly. So that's very simplistic. I include, I've just started doing monthly grocery menus. It's a little stressful for me right now. I used to do it weekly, but it was just it's easier for me to go to BJ's. That's like a whole other soapbox. But, so I usually include a form. I haven't found one I like yet. Like, I might just end up using 2 of those calendars or write it at the bottom of the calendar. So that's something you can add in there if you'd like to. And then the next 2 pages, all right, I have to tell you a funny story. My 8-year-old wanted to help me put binders together. And this is kind of sad for me as a homeschooler. She didn't realize that there was a certain way to put in notebook page. She's never seen notebook page before. And so some of them are upside down. So, and she goes, it works both ways. So if it's upside down, I apologize. You can turn it over or whatever. She didn't understand why I had to have a big part at the top. But anyway. So those 2 pages is where the magic happens. So how I do it, I base it, again, we get paid on Thursdays, so I'm sure a lot of you have Disney husbands, but if not, bi-weekly is fine. So you'll put what day you get paid, how much money you have in your account, and you deduct from there. So I use my zero-based budget, that first sheet, as like a checklist. So I go through, like, I have $1,000 this week. Okay, well, besides like mortgage and all that stuff, I can pay 4 things, and so I'll just check them off. And again, I'm anal, so you might not like this, but that way, at the bottom of the week, it tells me how much should be in my bank account. Because I'm one of those people that I get at the bank account, I'm like, we have $100 extra. My husband's like, that's great. I go, no, that means I forgot something. So this tells me exactly. So I even like check it off during the week. And the people that have not been so prone to this, or like they can't get their mind around it, I've actually written their weeks out for them, and they love it because then they can just check it and they know, like, when it comes out, then they know how much is left in their account. So I do that for every single week. At the end of the month, you should have enough to roll over that you can pay stuff like mortgage. So practical stuff. Our mortgage is due the beginning of the month, but they gave me till the 15th to pay. So I always hope to pay it at the beginning of the month. I will tell you though, we've never had enough money to consistently do that. Sometimes it's on the 13th because that's when the Thursday fell that we had enough money to pay it. But that way you'll know, especially on your calendar. So that's where I use my calendar too, if you don't have any party. So my easiest way of doing it is when I start the new week, I say, it's on the 10th, okay, what do I have bill-wise? And so those all come first. If I were to preach a little, if you don't mind, I got really convicted. I was doing tithing at the end of the month, and just something didn't feel right. And I kept reading and reading and reading and reading about giving your first fruit, and reading and reading and reading, and I'm like, I no longer, so when we first started, it was 2%, so it was like, oh, well, if we could give 3% at the end of the month, I just add the extra in, like, there we go, God, are you happy? And it was not resting well with me, and so I just kept reading that first fruit, and now it's the first line of every week. So I encourage you to do that, whether it's your 1% or your 10%.
What does first fruit mean, Jana?
I'm sorry, yes. So there's a parable in the Bible about farmers, and someone came and brought all his produce, and the other one just came with the first fruit, the first thing that popped out of the ground. And God preferred the first fruit. And so it's basically don't give them your leftovers. So that's how I take it, even though it's harsh. Because I was just worried. Again, I had that fear of God, like, I'm giving him the last even though it's enough. Like, what does that mean? Will our blessings stop? So for a while, I had that mentality. So even now, it's the first line that comes out of every week. So in our binder, it's always tithe, food, gas, and then it's our bills, and then it's all the other stuff. So we have like, I put aside money because we homeschool, so I put aside money for school. If you guys have field trips and stuff like that, put aside that kind of money. So anyway, that's how I practically do it. My other tip is, and this is not something everybody could do, but I really recommend getting into a bank that could do this, is we have like mini accounts. I don't even know how to explain it. So we have shares, I think is what they call it. We have Disney's bank, which is so cute, Disney's bank, but they have shares that you can do. So we have a Christmas share, we have a lawn share, we have a school share, we have other stuff, I don't know what they are. I have a Prime account. I put $10 a month aside as a Prime account. So I pay it as though it was a bill. So if something's coming up, we have a home one, like if I want to redo something, air filters, things like that. I have a car fund. If you need new tires, it goes up. When we need new tires, every month we pay more. If it's just for your license registration, you just divide it between 12 months and stick it in there like a bill. Only because the point of it all, per Dave Ramsey, is that you feel freed by your budget instead of locked down. And I cannot tell you how often, especially having children when you want to do stuff with them and you feel guilty doing stuff with them because you don't have the money, which it should be the opposite. I have gone to the theater and been excited because I was like, oh, all I have to do is transfer it out of that account. Like, it's already sitting there, it's fine. Or the ultimate blessing is you go out for dinner and you had budgeted $30 and it's only $20. We've given the waiter an extra $10 or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just stuff like that. Just, I don't know, it makes your heart happy. It just frees your mind for way more important things than money. Like, money is not what God intended you to focus your life on, let me just tell you. So this is just a free, very free part of it. And then, the best part is at the end of the year, you can look back and see your accomplishments, because you I think. So those are the practical parts of it. That is not all of the teachings. I really would urge you guys to take a class or see someone one-on-one, because this will change your life. It will. This is step one, but then there's investing, and then there's, you know, your future, there's college, there's paying off your house. Like, there's like endless amounts where my husband is going to. And can I tell you, my husband's #1 hard process right now is giving. And it, y'all, if you would have known my husband a long time ago, it was, we don't have enough to give them any money. Like, we need money. He wants an Audi. I'm just telling you, little things go a long way. Not a red Ferrari. So it's been a little crazy. We just love giving, and it's such a hard check. That's all I can tell you. It's a blessing when you do it. It's hard to do. Heather and I have a lot of talks about it where God gave me the gift of following lists, and it's just very easy to me. Which is why I came up with the system, because coming up with a system is not so good. I will tell you, when I first started, I was like, we can only pay $400 a month for food. You know, I have 4 children. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. $400. And every month, you can imagine, I at least double that. And so I was like, I don't understand. I can't follow this budget. And so you just have to check yourself. So I'm horrible at making plans, but I can follow a plan like nobody's business. Some people, I can call her out. Heather can make a plan like nobody's business. Following it. It's her struggle. So it's just some people have their struggles. So either way, it's going to be a struggle. And so it's just super helpful to have this tool. And I even, in one of the boxes, there's even papers to put in the front, like a cute little cover page. So you can find them free online anywhere. But I printed a few of them if you guys want them. But
cover page?
Yeah.
I wondered what that was.
I think that's it. I think the last time I talked, things had just happened in my life, and so it was a lot about that heart check feeling. This I have perfected in my life, and it has been such a blessing that I wanted to share more of like the practical things. I would also urge you just to try it. Don't wait until you've perfected what you spend or if it's perfect, because a little bit will save you a lot. whether it's now knowing that you have money for Christmas every year. We talk about that a lot. Like, just make a Christmas fund if that's all you do. Just save a few months, save a few dollars every month, and at the end of it, there's no like stress about Christmas. So just little things will go such a long way. And who doesn't need more like mind space? I know. So it'll just free you on. Are there any questions?
Spreadsheets, like an Excel spreadsheet that they can share.
Debbie, I'm glad you asked. I hate Excel. I hate it. My husband goes, but I can give you these like algorithms. I can't. Nope. I don't want it. I don't want it. That's why I write it. So some people love Excel because then you can also change labels. I don't know. Because I told him, I was like, sometimes I pay this that week, but sometimes it's the 4th week. And he's like, well, you can move it. And I go, no. That's really why I can't do that. So I can't even tell you, my husband laughs at me at how many times I erase my binder because if I'm $5 off, I erase it and I erase it. So I don't. A lot of people.
Well, they use this stuff on the internet.
They do.
I was just gonna say, if you like Jana's spreadsheet, but you want a digital version of the same thing, you can get Dave Ramsey's app. You can use it either in your web browser, or you can use it on your phone. It's called Every Dollar. It looks just like this, but you can move, and it'll literally do all the math for you.
Can you download
It's still a free service. You can also attach your bank account to it, and it'll do it for you to show you how much is in your bank account. I think this is why I prefer this method. But you pay a fee, and they will actually download your account to it. So that way you can see what's in your account. Or if you're okay, you can do it the free version, and then it kind of does your budget for you. And you can say,
And you have to plug in your expenses.
you plug it in. And when you're at the grocery store, you'll say like, I spend da da da. So you write that. So it's very like.
Alright, so I am one of those people that
Listen, because this question might be your question too. Please, I'm sorry.
I'm one of those people that has a very, like, my husband has the solid amount coming in, and since I'm a freelancer, it fluctuates a lot. So how, like, what's the difference in doing that? Do I kind of make a guesstimate on the low and the high?
I would never want that budget, but I get excited about doing the budget, if that makes sense. So what Dave recommends doing is, what is the minimum you would ever make in a month? And then what do you need to pay? If you're a Christ follower, tithing is first, food, gas, your mortgage, your electric, your water. That's probably all your immediate things. So you would pay those. So hopefully you have enough just to pay those. And then it's, what's most important? Is it field trips? So that would be number 1. Is it clothing? That would be number 2. And as you have extra money, you would pay for the order because it's the amount that you value more, I guess. So it's done monthly still. And that was the other thing, if I didn't finish my point about talking to your husband. You have to make sure that you're on the same page of what you're buying each month. And I told you my husband's a good communicator, but sometimes I go, hey, do you have anything this month you want? And he's like, I don't know. And then, second week comes up and he's like, hey, the guys wanted to go out for wings. And I was like, sorry. I already budgeted, like, you didn't get that money. So that's why you do it every month. Is so you make sure, like, hey, I knew that we were having 12 birthday parties this month, and so you already budget that in. So things come up all the time, and it's really hard. That is the hardest part, I think Dave tells you, is it takes 3 months to get on track because you forget things all the time. Y'all, it took us like 8 months to really have a true budget because we were like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Like license and registration comes up at a certain month and your birthday and all this stuff comes up. So it really takes a long time to really perfect it. But that's why I said try it. Because even if it's $100 off, some people are $1,000 off a month and it's very stressful. And so
it's
suggest really.
in the process of trying to figure it out. I didn't really think through my question.
No worries.
Talking. I think we could think through it.
Later. Okay.
I mean,
No.
well, see, so my husband is a business owner, so his income is
Correct.
never the same. And so, and we have done Dave Ramsey's class. We've actually taught the class. We've fallen off the way.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was when we stopped having when I stopped working. So anyway.
Yeah.
As far as our amount for the month or
Yeah.
whatever. We kind of like did an average instead, like we kind of went through the last 12 months and
Yes.
did like an average in that way, cause like, you know, the goal obviously is when you make less, well, when you make more, you save more so that you can,
Yeah.
but anyway, I really don't know what I'm talking right now, so.
So my question, the only reason he says to do your minimum
Right.
is that you're screwed if you don't make it. And that would
Testify.
okay, so that would stress me. I'm like, y'all, I'm around nose, or if you tell me to do something, I'm gonna do exactly what you're telling me, because I'm scared you'll like strike me down. I know, strike me down. So that would be my only thing, is it was more of like an anxiety thing, to do it like an average. I would do a minimum. And see what happens. If you can't get by on minimum, and you really think you'll make more,
Right.
do it obviously, but I would try. And he really stresses about income being your best tool. If you don't make enough money, a lot of people have things that they can do without, but also a lot of people don't. And so if you really are living simply, try to make more money in any possible way that you can, whether it's his first thing is sell everything. Just sell everything, you have a yard sale, like you don't need things, versus like actually taking your time out of your kids or whatever to go to work. Like try to sell as much as you can, because that might be enough to like jumpstart you again. So that's the only, it's more mental, I would think, which is lower than a adult.
So one of the things that we've kind of like dabbled in the same terms, I feel like my husband loves to listen to him on Sirius.
I find him so,
My husband.
I find him very confident. I love to listen to him, my husband's like, I can't listen to him. I can't, it's like,
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
like everything.
Look,
It's like
it's
a couple
like-
of things that we kind of like fall, we have like this wall
Okay.
that we have with Dave Ramsey, is that my husband is very much like a plan for worst case scenario, so instead of having like $1,000 emergency fund, he's like, let's keep it all in savings and we'll just keep making payments.
Yeah.
And like our truck is paid off in like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want me to just pay it off now,
Yes.
just save a little bit on interest, and he's like, no, I'd rather have the money in savings.
So
And I'm like,
Dave,
you know,
Dave
this
Ramsey's a
you can't
big-
really follow
yes.
the Dave Ramsey plan if you're like.
Dave
you're
Ramsey's
not
a big
so
math
math
person, which is where, please don't ask me about taxes and about, like, I have no idea, like 401k, my husband does all of that nonsense. But he's a big math person, and so he will show you, like, and I've heard it too many times, about how much you are wasting in interest that you could be saving over millions of years and stuff like that,
He's the
so.
one that listens to him.
Yeah,
But
which is
he's also the one
hysterical.
that doesn't want to take the money out of
But
it.
also, my fear is, and again, it's fear-based, but my fear is that you, not that I should put this on, never mind, that's my fear. I think it's better to follow him just because of the math reasons, but, yeah. But biblically, you're in debt to somebody. So that's also his big deal, is that you are in debt to somebody. So it doesn't feel good, you know what I mean? I'm gonna talk to your husband.
He's a math guy.
I love
You
you.
can show him how much, listen, if he's a math guy, you can show him how much interest he's, and now you probably won't buy it, but you can show him, this is how much we have outgoing in interest, and this is how much we have income.
Yeah, he knows this though, that's not the thing, it's the worst case scenario, like, you know, I lose my job tomorrow and we lose our house and everything.
But then you still have a truck company, they're gonna come sue you.
How are you supposed to?
They're gonna come sue you. Correct, yeah.
But it's like, that's like his thing, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we could like follow it closely with the budget and things like that, but that's where it comes to, for us, that's our hard part.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot, besides like our house and
Right.
our truck, but then everything else we pay off monthly, but he's like, you know, where Dave would say, oh, snowball, pay the truck off, and then throw a lot of money, extra money into your mortgage, and bring
Well, he would save it in your savings, he would build that savings back up.
Yeah.
I would also say he tries to really, and I agree with this, make it a hard issue, like with your husband, of like, this is not how I feel we should be doing it, like, don't I have a say, like, not in a coercive way, but in a, like, it's really bothering me, this is my life too, if something happens, like, that kind of stuff, like, do you know what I mean, like, that's the best way to kickstart it, I would think, and that's what Dave always says, it's like,
It also seems like you could just flip the steps, like if he wants a 6 to 9 month savings, let him keep his 6 to 9 month savings, and then once he has that, then do your debt snowball.
Yeah.
We did that, because I was freaking out. We did it, and so it was like, okay, we're good, and then once we had that, it was like,
Yeah.
Okay, it's almost a year, it's almost a year. If everything falls apart, we have a year. And then you can just go for it.
And that's more mental, like, because
Yeah.
if you're okay with the math, like you're saying, he knows all that.
Yeah.
So if he knows it and he's willing to waste the money, and it makes his heart feel better, you know, I mean.
Cause I'm at the point, I'm like, we went through this like pretty much all year last year, talking
Yeah.
about following this and doing
Yeah.
this, and it was, and the truck is always the big one for us, and, now I'm like, it's paid off in like April, like, I'm not arguing about this
Yeah.
anymore, like, when it's paid off,
Right.
you're like, no,
Yeah.
you know, we can talk about the house later on.
Yeah, and this is, and I say that all the time, and when we bought our solar panels, it was, y'all, it was a dream of mine, because I'm very detailed. And I was willing to do that because we had a plan and we paid it off so quickly. And the whole goal is not to follow this plan. And I'm telling myself the same thing, because I want to check boxes. The whole goal is to live a better life, like. And so those panels made me feel so good that we were living off the land and all that stuff. And my husband's kind of like your husband, where he's like, whatever, like, as long as it works out. So it just made me feel better. So I don't want you to stress about, like, the steps. The steps are there as your best life. Like, that is the best way to do it, to not waste money, to save as much as you can, as fast as you can, get your motivation going. So that's really what it's for. It's not like this, like, oh, I'm gonna fight my husband for years because of it. Like, it's really just to live your best life.
I was also just gonna say, like, we tried for years to do this, and using our debit card still, like, we stopped after 2 months every single time. Like, the magic for us was when we went to an all cash system. Like, we had our automatic stuff taken from our account,
Yeah.
and then we paid for gas on our card, because I didn't wanna, like,
Yeah.
especially with kids, have to go into the gas station
Yep.
to pay. So that was my little luxury for
Yep.
myself. But when we went to a cash only system,
Yep.
that's when everything changed
Yep.
for us. Everything.
And dig
Like,
deep about that,
challenge
because
yourself
that's
to do
true.
that.
I know a lot of people that aren't self-disciplined.
Yeah.
And
Don't
that,
ever point
I'm
at me.
sorry.
I'm very disciplined at making very much.
I'm because we just had this conversation, not because it applies to me. You know your strengths.
Yeah.
So if that is one of your weaknesses or strengths, use the best process, because it will really work to your advantage. It really will. Yeah.
I have a question about, like, I think it'd be super great for our family to go to a cash system. However, we really like our Visa American Airlines credit card because we do most of our purchases on that, and we earn our miles, and that's how we're able to fly to Oregon to see both sets of grandparents. So, like, I don't know, is there a happy medium?
This
I don't know.
is Jana talking, not Dave Ramsey. Don't
Oh, okay, okay.
But you need to know you. So he really tells you.
Like, we paid off every month.
Truth,
We
yes.
just treat it as.
So truth, I do the same thing. I
Yeah.
still have a credit card. It makes
Yeah.
us a lot of money in extra cash every month that we can
Yeah.
do something fun with. His big thing is, are you spending more to get miles? Like, are you spending money that you wouldn't normally spend just to get miles to go somewhere? Because then you could just pay for it. You know what I mean? You could just pay for the plane. So if you're actually only spending your bills on that card, and you just happen to get miles so that you can do something else, I personally think that's smart.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
However, I would go to say 75% of people
Yeah.
will spend a lot more on their credit card just to get more miles, which makes no sense financially.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So don't, and I don't want to be harsh about it. Don't give yourself permission to do that, because that's not what this is for.
Yeah.
It's really to, like, use your money wisely. And my mom said this to me since I was like a child, and again, one of those things your mom says, you're like, oh, you're right, like, it's so crazy. She always said there's something to be said about contentment, and I never knew what she meant until I got older. Contentment about a lot of things. But it's like, in this instance, there's so much to be said about contentment, and that's really what it's about. Are you content with what you have? Are you content with how to live simply, because all you need is food, water, love? You know what I mean? Those kind of things. And so all these extra required makeup and clothes and toys for kids that already have 12,000 toys and like things like that is where we get tripped up in our society, and it's just downhill from there. And that's the only reason Dave Ramsey is a job, which is, but
Right.
that's really what it's about. It's not about like having money issues or sticking to this one plan and always having your planner ready and like so like set on doing this. It's living, you know.
question. How much time a week or a month do you think you dedicate? I'm sure now it's like really easy, but like
now it's more because I have an obsession. But I would say you get less and less the more you know your budget.
sure.
If that makes sense. So it took, like I said, it took a long time for me to really understand how much we spent on this or this or this. Heather and I were talking the other day about like those little things that we spend and why are we just not putting them in our budget instead of stressing about them every month. Like if we see we're spending $100 on clothes and it's like we never buy clothes, like I'm not gonna put that in my budget next month, and we literally buy clothes every single month, just put it in your budget because then it's like I don't know if you guys are like this, but when you create a habit you just forget about it. So that way you can just forget about it and it's already in your budget and like you know you're gonna spend it and that's just is what it is. So I would say even with loving my budget, loving it, it takes me about maybe a half an hour every month to create it for the next month. And then I don't know, 20 minutes every Thursday. That's the morning. No. I mean I might redo my over and over again so I don't tell my children. Who didn't get a binder that was
I can have a binder.
Oh, yes.
I was just gonna add something to that. I don't know if you've heard of mint.com.
Oh, yes.
So,
It didn't update fast enough.
okay, well, what I was gonna say.
My husband loves it.
Yeah, well, what we first did, because we tried this a while ago, and we were like, we can't make this work. I don't understand why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So my husband is, Mint is free, and you put in your bank information, it'll categorize what you spend. So we're like, oh, same thing with you. We aren't spending our $300 on groceries because last month we spent $900 on groceries and tax, so we need to adjust our budget to whatever.
It's a great thing to piggyback on, like start, because it gets your bank account, and so it does tell you, like, this is how much you spend on restaurants. So you're like, oh. Yeah.
It's just a good like starting point.
But yeah, it'll give you, and you can talk, and please talk to your friends. Like I know we talk a lot. Talk to people that have the same amount of people in your family. Like, hey, how much do you spend on groceries? Because I mean, you'll know if you're like $500 off. Like that's excessive. But if you're in the same range, it makes you feel bad that you're not crazy.
Yeah. I think that's
You know how much money I spend on groceries?
You don't, even like with kids, like I only have one child, so you don't know what's
You
normal.
have no idea.
Right. And I am like a self-inflicted guilt person, and so like, talking to somebody who only has one kid, is like, oh, this is normal to spend this much money, because.
And also think about your lifestyle as far as like, we've been privileged to be gifted clothing. I was just telling Heather, we've had to buy clothes this year, and I'm like, clothes are so expensive. Like, who knew? But somebody who doesn't have that privilege buys clothes all the time, so they can be like, oh my gosh, you're getting a great deal, or that's a little much. Like, you can probably find it cheaper here or there. So, really talk to people that kind of have the same instance as you, because you can either feel really great about yourself or really down, and it's not accurate because they have less children, more children, all that kind of stuff. Eat differently than you do. We eat differently. So me and Heather talk all the time, and she's like, girl, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like, we eat all our dinner. You know, so like, you have to find your like budgeter so that you are on the same, like, you'll go crazy, trust me.
I think another thing that's helpful, like, starting out, is to like, instead of like starting your budget this month, maybe like, keep up,
Please don't start your budget in the middle of the month.
well, that's not what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay, it
but
stresses me out.
I was just gonna say, you can always like,
watch what you're doing.
yeah, like, because when we
Correct.
like would try to create one, it's like, you have no idea, like, if you kind of look back and
I
you're
would
like,
just have to,
like, you know, okay, so we normally spend about this much, so, and also it helps to be realistic, like, kind of like what you were saying with the clothes thing, like, because it's like, let's not spend, okay, we can only spend $200 on groceries, which that's all we can spend.
Right, that's
And it's like every month you're like spending more than that, and it's like a self-inflicted thing, so it's like, let's be realistic. We are going to spend this much.
And think about it like, I always think about it like Disney lines where they like tell you it's 45 minutes, it's only 30, make yourself feel better. So if you spend $100, budget $150. Like, what if something happens and something comes up? What if you only spend 70 and you're like,
Feels better to have extra.
do you know what I mean? And do that for a few months if you're able to, because it really helps you get on your feet faster than being short. Let me tell you, being short will throw you.
And make you not want to the next month.
But I think you said something important, which is if you're able to.
Right.
And so, to achieve this kind of freedom that we're talking about also means sacrifice. It does mean cutting in places that you would normally like to spend, but in order to, I think, to achieve real freedom and get to a place where you can be a generous giver, and we can talk a little more about what that means to be a generous giver and why we should be generous givers, it probably will take, it definitely will take sacrifices and discipline. But it will be so worth it. I think freedom that has come with that, you know, like I couldn't stay home until we achieved freedom and, you know, got debt free. And because I was able to stay home, I was able to do MOPS. And because I was able to do MOPS, I was able to start this ministry that we all are sitting here for. So, like Jana said, blessings come in different packages. But none of that is possible without first getting right financially.
And I would say that's probably,
And it took sacrifice.
along with being your sounding board, that is one of the biggest helpful parts about having a counsel that you look up to, because they will tell you, like, do you really need to spend $50 at a gym when you can do it at home? Or do you really need to, you have 12? You know what I mean? And those are those people that, not in a judgment way, but they live life with you every day, and it's not going to be a blow to your ego. It's going to like really help you in saving that money, so that eventually, and that was my biggest thing that was set apart about the truth thing, is I told my husband this morning, I was like, who am I to be talking to these ladies about budget when I used to do all of that stuff, like all the time. And I tell you not, like I was that person. We charged everything, well, we'll pay it off, or we'll do this. We had student loans, we did, funny story, we went to the financial piece for the first time. We had just bought a house, and we did every step wrong. And me and my husband literally looked at each other, and they went through step by step. No, every step was wrong. And we were like, what do we do? And so we did everything wrong. We did everything that Dave Ramsey told you not to do. We had debt in every category, personal debt, everything. We borrowed money from a family member. You're not supposed to ruin your life. You know, like that kind of stuff. We did everything. You ruin your relationship. So I'm just kind of a testimony more than an expert, if that makes sense. Yeah. Any more questions? Don't be shy. This is like a good, because other people probably need to hear it too.
Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and for putting these finances together.
But I didn't know.
I think everybody got one.